Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Jason Cohen and I'll be your host for today. I'm also joined by my co-hosts, Valen Kolika, Ryan Heffernan, and Ashley Martin. A few reminders before we start. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recordings on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Closed captions in several languages are available during the live broadcast. You can enable them by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask a Question button. Be aware that any question you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. If you see a question you would like to be verbalized at the end of the webinar, please give it a thumbs up and the question with the most likes will be prioritized during Q&A. We often get many questions on these webinars and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event if the answer was not provided or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Microsoft Sentinel forum at aka.ms/Microsoft Sentinel community. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. You can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. And by the way, all the links that I'm announcing will be shared with you on the chat or the live event Q&A window. I would also like to invite you to join our public community by visiting aka.ms/security-community. That's the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews at aka.ms/prsetcom, request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, register for events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. In today's session, Sarah Fender, Jason Wescott, and Ofer Shezaf will take us through latest innovations for Microsoft's cloud-native SIEM. Sarah is a partner GPM with the Microsoft Sentinel team, while Ofer and Jason are principal product managers with the Microsoft Sentinel team. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to them. Sarah, Ofer, Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining today. We'll go ahead and jump right in. There we go. So we're going to start today with just a quick introduction to Azure Sentinel. I think most of you who are joining the call hopefully have a little bit of familiarity. So we won't spend a ton of time on this, but just a few slides with a bit of background and an introduction to Sentinel. Where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today is around the set of announcements that we launched at Microsoft Ignite a week. Has it only been a week ago since we did that? There's a ton of new innovation that landed at that event. And so we're going to spend the bulk of our time really clicking through those different experiences and capabilities so you can really see them in depth and have the opportunity to ask questions in the live Q&A and some time for that as well at the end. So I'll get us started here by talking a little bit about what sort of drives us in the Microsoft Sentinel team. And it's really around solving these very challenging, solving some of these really pressing challenges that many of the security operations centers that we engage with note. Over the last 2 years in particular, we've seen this really phenomenal change in the way that we all work. We're at home, we're using the same networks to access corporate resources that our kids are using to do their schoolwork or to play Xbox. We're working from more devices from more places than really ever before, and this creates some new and interesting challenges for security operations teams. Some of these numbers on the slide here are pre-pandemic, but it's important to note that these trends were really evident well before kind of the world changed, and they really are even more critical today. Security professionals are simply overwhelmed with the volume of alerts and signals. Attacks are increasing in volume and complexity, and the number of tools and vendors that security operations teams are using to try to fill these gaps, to defend against these attackers, are in some ways making it even more challenging for them. Again, driving that volume of alert data that makes it hard for organizations to understand where they need to focus first. And so with these challenges in mind, we've really designed and continue to innovate in Azure Sentinel to try to address these challenging areas for our customers. Microsoft Sentinel really offers what we think is a new and a modern approach to security information and event management to the SIEM area. It is a completely cloud-native solution powered by AI and automation, and again, really designed around helping security operations teams become more efficient to really optimize the way that they work and become more effective at detecting and responding to threats. Microsoft Sentinel's cloud-native nature really empowers you with the scale, flexibility, and speed of the cloud. All of these benefits that are driving lots of workloads to the cloud really apply, perhaps even more so in some regards to your security workloads. So you get all of that scale that's required to support the growing set of security data inside your environment, the flexibility to add new resources as required or new data sources as required, and the speed to be able to analyze and process and make sense of those in an efficient way. All the while eliminating the need for you to manage the underlying infrastructure of the SIEM. Of course, as a cloud service, Sentinel takes care of all of that for you, so you can focus on the more important work of detecting and responding to threats. The solution is designed to detect complex, evolving threats across this massive amount of signals, and it does that by using a range of different analytics, including machine learning, UEBA, and a variety of other techniques that were developed by Microsoft security experts. We have this massive amount of intelligence and expertise, as you can imagine, across Microsoft that's gained from decades of protecting our own Microsoft environment as well as our cloud services at immense scale. And we really can leverage that intelligence and insight to make it easier for you to detect threats using the Sentinel solution. It's built around this idea of expediting incident response, making it very, very easy for you to triage, investigate, determine the root cause and full scope and impact of an incident so that you can quickly take action to reduce the impact of that incident within your organization. And lots of work goes into automating those common incident aggregation and incident response processes, enrichment, triage kinds of things to enable you to act more quickly. And then finally, with these efficiency gains, Microsoft Sentinel gives you the ability to finally be proactive about finding and stopping threats. This is something we hear a lot from security operations teams, that they wish they had more time and more tools to do proactive hunting for new and emerging threats. And Sentinel provides you hopefully with more opportunity to do that, because you're spending less of your time, doing, lower value security operations tasks, and also with a set of custom built tools and capabilities that really help you to take on this task of proactive threat hunting and helps you to stay ahead of attackers. And Sentinel does that by providing really this end-to-end solution for security operations. And you'll see today that we've got really innovations in all of these different areas that we've announced at Ignite. But this really starts with first, of course, the ability to collect all of your security data from on-prem, from other clouds, from Azure. This just massive set of security data can be easily collected and in Azure, in Microsoft Sentinel, and you get easy access to search, to build workbooks and dashboards on top of that data. The ability to apply analytics to that data, including UEBA, to find real threats from the sea of data, to enable you to hunt through all of this data with our custom-built hunting experience, to bring in your own and to leverage Microsoft Threat Intelligence, to enable you to easily manage and investigate incidents, including graphs and timeline views, all of the things that you would need to really manage and track and understand the various components of that incident, and the ability to automate investigation and response. All of this really powered by this community of security analysts, and as I mentioned earlier, backed by Microsoft security experts who leverage this vast experience. helping to protect Microsoft to deliver value to you through Azure Sentinel. Microsoft Sentinel. It's going to take us a little while, I think, myself certainly, to make that switch from Azure Sentinel to Microsoft Sentinel, which was another change that we announced at Ignite. So bear with me and my teammates as we adapt and embrace the new Microsoft name. I'm sure we'll. I certainly am not there 100% and getting it wrong a couple of times here and there. So bear with us as we work through that change. So that's kind of the little bit of a tee up on Microsoft Sentinel. But again, where we want to spend the bulk of our time is really taking you through some of these innovations. And so I think, Jason, are you up next to kind of kick off those deep dives?
I am. Thank you, Sarah.
Awesome. Thank you.
So the first part we wanted to go over was our new Content Hub. So this is the area of the product we introduced at Ignite that we're really excited about. It replaces the blade that used to be called Solutions. And this is really an interactive hub which gives you control over all of the content available for Microsoft Sentinel, both from Microsoft and from third parties. You'll find out of the gate, we've got more than 90 solutions spanning lots of different categories. We're going to take a look at that just 1 second. So you'll see the new blade over here in the Content Hub. You'll see under Content Management and rich interface for searching. We've got lots of different content types. If you just want to look for things that provide new analytics rules or data connectors, workbooks, which are our dashboards in Microsoft Sentinel. Playbooks is our automation framework. We have a lot of different parsers for normalizing data. The Content Hub also gives you a good idea of how the support works for each different solution, whether it's supported directly by Microsoft or through the partner itself. We've got the different providers listed here, so you can do lots of rich filtering and searching by categories, domains. If I just want to look at things like threat intelligence, I can do so. You can see that if we click on, for example, the Cisco umbrella, it's got lots of different content types in it, 10 analytics rules, hunting queries, a parser for Cisco, 3 automation playbooks, and a visualization workbook. So really excited about this. It gives us a lot of opportunity to showcase the various solutions that are being delivered by both Microsoft and partners. You know, Risk IQ is one that I'm particularly fond of, as I own the threat intelligence areas in the product and have been, you know, kind of working with Risk IQ as we've acquired the company and onboarding them to Microsoft. These are super simple. If you go to any of these solutions and you know, it tells you all about them, how it's offered, how it's supported, what's included in each one, screenshots. When you create them, basically it takes you to a templatized install. So you put in, you know, where you wanted to install it, which work subscription and workspace. This particular solution has only playbooks in it, but it's got a whole bunch of different playbooks. The nice thing about these is that when you put in your aliases and your credentials, you'll see you'll review and create, and it'll deploy all of these at once, and they'll be ready to go. So unlike in the past when you had to kind of go into the playbooks in particular and open them up and configure the connections, these connections will automatically be done for you through the setup process. And as soon as the install is done, it'll be ready to go. So super nice with the Content Hub. All right. Back here, we're going to be switching back and forth a lot. You'll see. So just a word of for folks. The deck that we're going to leave behind has a bunch of screenshots in it. A little bit easier to follow along, and since there's no talk track, so you'll see us go through a lot of these. The other thing we wanted to highlight was the Content Hub. Excuse me, the Community Portal. And apologies, we're flipping back and forth here is a little cumbersome, but so our new community, which is right under the Content Hub, you'll find it. We just recently announced our Hackathon 2021 winners, and lots of really interesting stuff was submitted. You'll see our first and second prizes and our runner-ups here. I highly encourage you to check those out. The kind of things that people are building with Sentinel are really, really cool. These are quick links to the community, which obviously you guys are already well familiar with since this is a tech community call, but it also links to our blogs and our forums and everything. So it's a nice place to get easy access to these locations.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have a request from the audience to zoom in a little.
Okay, I will make a note of that on my next. All right, I think we're going to pass it over to Ofer at this point.
Thank you, Jason. Let me start sharing my screen. Just like Jason, I'll have to switch back and forth from slides too. Anyways, can you confirm that you can see my screen? No, you can't. I need to select one. Now I can see my screen. So I would like to share our announcements around analytics, so detection rules. As many of you know, that's a core functionality of your SIEM. And you use it to define your own analytic rules as well as to use out-of-the-box detection rules that you can just tune, and we'll talk about that. We introduced a few new things in Ignite around analytics. The first one is near real-time analytic rules. Those enable you for the first time to run rules that are triggered every 1 minute, which is much more frequent than before. Those rules also automatically adjust for event delays. Event delays are a common challenge in the SIEM world. We can't do a lot about that. It's the sources that send the events too late. But the new rules do compensate for that and make sure that you do get your alerts once the events do get in correctly. The second innovation we introduced around our analytic rules is rule tuning. One of the biggest challenges around legacy SIEM is that rules misfire, false positives. And while we aim to create the best rules in the world, they might misfire and your rules might misfire. So we added capability to tune the rules based on machine learning recommendations. We'll actually look into that in a second. Lastly, we have added a capability to manage your rules in a GitHub or Azure DevOps repositories, automatically syncing the content with the repository. This provides a great opportunity to better manage your rules, have version control, approval processes, a deployment pipeline, etc., and really bring SIEM content management to the cloud age. With that said, I'll skip to the demo part, and we look into how Azure Sentinel, sorry, Sarah, you told me that we'll do that. Microsoft Sentinel helps you to tune your rules, and you don't need that. Starting now, this is already public, like I think all of the features we're demonstrating today. When you go to the analytics blade and you see all the active rules, you'll get a small light bulb icon for rules that we have identified something that you can do about. If you go and edit the rule, as you should do because something is rule, and you go to the logic tab, you will get the tuning insights. Those are, this is information that you can take and actively do something to enhance your rules. So first of all, we'll tell you what the alerts rate, how many alerts are there, and how did you respond to them? How did you categorize the incidents open based on them as true positive or false positive? Maybe 5 out of 8 is a good rate. So that's a starting point. But that's not enough. That's just starting point. Should I do anything? If I go to the next screen, I'll actually get useful information about entities that seems to have been the root cause for many of the false positives. So we see that incidents coming from accounts no and IP 114 whatever are susceptible to false positives. Moreover, if I press this plus button, I will exclude the entity in the rule directly. So if I go here now, sorry for the bit of KQL, the system automatically added the exception to this entity directly to the rule. So you can actually fix directly from the insights. Lastly, we want to also learn a bit more about the entities across the incidents, false or true positives, to understand what the rule is about. So highlight to you the entities that were involved in a large number of the incidents. It might actually also have security value, not just tuning value. Getting into your periodical procedure around Sentinel, going to the analytics blade, checking for those light bulbs and correcting will significantly enhance in a very easy manner your rate of incidents to start with. I'll go back to the slide deck, I think, just to hand it over back to Jason. Correct, Jason?
Thank you, Ofer. Let me share. All right. Great. Thank you. So let's talk about some new advancements that we announced at Ignite around, oh, we are at the wrong slide.
Just that you see that you have backup for everything. Everything is listed with you.
Yeah. So lots of good stuff in the takeaway slides. But let's talk about big data and hunting. So one of the things we announced at Ignite we're really excited about is our new integration with Azure Synapse for big data machine learning processing. So we're going to do a demo of this Azure Synapse and notebooks. You know, as a big data platform, it takes several minutes to run through the actual analytics. So we're going to basically, I thought the best way to show you folks how to do this was to actually just walk through the setup and installation of these, and you can run them on your own. The other thing we want to talk about is the new hunting advancements we made, and we're going to demo those as well. So let's get over back to here. So I've zoomed in. Hopefully, this is now big enough for folks to see. So machine learning notebooks are found here under the threat management blade. The first thing is everything in Azure Machine Learning requires an Azure ML workspace. So the first thing you have to do is create a new ML workspace in your environment. This creates the actual environment that the compute is going to run on and provision that for you. So the next thing you want to do to integrate into Synapse is go ahead and create a new Azure Synapse workspace. When you click on these, it brings up a wizard, takes you through it, provisions everything for you, nice and easy. We've done that for you ahead of time, so we don't have to wait for that. But that's the first two steps you need to do. Then if you're going to be actually using the Synapse, the first thing you'll want to do is come over to templates. We provide 2 new templates to get you started here. The first one you want to run is this configuring Azure ML and Azure Synapse Analytics. You'll clone the notebook and then launch it. And what this does is it actually hooks up your Azure ML workspace that you configured over here with your Synapse workspace that you configured over here. And this basically allows you to set up jobs that will copy data from your log analytics workspace. You can do up to 20 different tables from your Microsoft Sentinel instance. Get those into your Azure Synapse data lake storage Gen 2 and make them accessible to the Azure Spark, which is actually what does all of the compute jobs. So once you've got all that set up, the initial provisioning, setting up, running this this workbook that connects everything together, you can actually start doing some hunting. And we provided a sample here just to get you started. This one will detect potential network beaconing through huge amounts of network data coming from your common security logs. So common security logs is a common table where folks like Cisco, Palo Alto, F5, firewall logs tend to land in the common security logs. So these things can be ingested by your Spark jobs and provisioned and run. So let's take a look at what that notebook looks like. When you launch the notebook, basically, for those unfamiliar, it's a series of little modules in Python. Basically, the way this works is the first thing it does is it does these warm-up steps, which basically installs all of the binaries needed in your compute node to get you up and running, connecting to Azure resources like your Spark and your Gen 2 storage. The next thing it does is it does data preparation, which is what actually loads data into the Spark job itself. You'll see all of these things are using this keyword Synapse, which basically tells you you're running these Synapse code directly from Microsoft Sentinel. All of these little modules are actually communicating directly with your Synapse job right here from within Sentinel. You'll go ahead and continue what we call it data wrangling, filtering the data, curating it, getting down to baselining to filtering for source and destination IPs. And at the end of the day, you'll come up with the data set through the ML algorithms that appear to be network beaconing. The other thing I wanted to just talk about is that, you can do a ton of things in these Python notebooks, including, reaching out to external data sources for things like enrichment. You can enrich with GeoIP, whois information, which is your domain registrations, and find out exactly, more about these things that you're network beaconing out to. You can enrich with threat intelligence. We have an internal threat intelligence provider through the library called Mystic Pi, but you can also connect to things like IBM X-Force or any other third-party threat intelligence for which you have access to. And at the end of the day, these things can even do things like visualizations. This is what this particular output looks like. So this is visualization of the network beaconing in our sample data set. So some pretty amazing stuff you can do, crunching terabytes of data with these jobs in relatively little time. So really good stuff. The next thing I wanted to talk about was hunting. So we made some pretty cool advancements in hunting. For those that aren't familiar with hunting and bookmarks, hunting has a bunch of pre-configured queries that you can do that help you kind of poke around and look for things that are unusual in your system. You can obviously write these. These are very similar to analytics jobs that Ofer was showing you, written in KQL. We can come here and look for something like uncommon, just as a sample. This will show you the least frequent processes that are being run across your environment. If you run the query, just takes a few seconds, you can see if you get any results. Looks like we have 26 different processes that are being identified as the least common. So the advancements in bookmarks are really about integration with MITRE. And so we've always had the ability to talk about the MITRE categories for different hunting queries, but now we give you the ability to actually map different techniques. So as you're looking through these hunting queries and you want to save these as bookmarks, which is really useful because bookmarks, basically think of them as a saved output of a query. It's not only the query itself, but the actual events that are returned by that query. You can attach those bookmarks to incidents as evidence, or you can create an incident directly from a bookmark. At any rate, for this particular example, we've run the query, we've said, oh, these are really interesting events here that we want to make sure that we capture. These two processes look suspicious, even though they don't, they're just common Windows processes, but let's just say they were suspicious. We could go ahead and add a bookmark here. And the nice thing about this is you can map your entities. In this case, we'll say that these are files with file names. And here's our new thing. We've got not just the category from MITRE, but we've got the actual techniques. So if we say, oh, these are all about exploitation, we can now save those, create this bookmark. It's going to create a bookmark for each of these events. And when we're done, you can see that we'll go back to our hunting queries. We'll go back to our bookmarks, and you can see here we are. And we've got the actual tactic identified here and the actual technique that we did, which was exploitation for client execution. And if you want to learn more about that, you can actually pop out and it takes you directly to the MITRE page for exploitation of client execution. Great. I think I'm going to hand it back to Ofer now.
Indeed. And I'll take control now. As usual, I need to select to actually do that. And I'm, as usual, in the wrong slide. Seems like a habit, Jason, between the two of us.
Sorry.
Anyways, short jump. Okay. Before I get to detection, yet again, the smart detection as opposed to the rule-based detection we discussed before, hearing Jason and myself talk, I think how much a point in time this is. So those are the announcements we made for Ignite. It is a large bunch of announcements, but releases across the year. So, for example, we announced Windows Event Forwarding. We went public with it last week. It's a big thing. You can now collect remotely from Windows machines to a Windows Event Collector and send it to Sentinel. And it wasn't even part of the Ignite announcements. And just 2 months ago, we announced that you can now filter the collection of security events. And that was just in between conferences, so no big webinar around it. So there's a lot more to watch for. And we'll try to, show you what we did now, but we do deliver a lot and in a pretty fast pace. But let's focus now on intelligent detection. So a few things which would support your detection, and we announced just now. The first one is that we now allow you to add to predefined watch lists information about your organization, who are your VIPs, sensitive servers, even map between different ways to different presentations of the same user. This mapping can be used across the product. The first area where it's built in is that now in the entity pages, which are a core element of UEBA, will now show you not just the information we gathered, but also what you told us about your organization. So once you pop up data into the watch list, your entity pages are customized to your environment. Getting into directly detection, I don't know if you've been with Sentinel for a while, you know our Fusion capability. Fusion analyzes the stream of alerts getting to your system and tries to reduce the noise by fusing multiple alerts that tell a similar, that address the same story, and therefore are more sure to be true alerts. Until now, Fusion focused mostly on Microsoft alerts, so those that come from sources that we know of. And what we added now, which I think is exciting, that Fusion now supports all of your alerts, whether they come from our built-in analytic rules and whether there are custom rules that you created. I think that's a force multiplier, and you'll see not a lot more, because Fusion is all about not showing you a lot more, but you see the value of Fusion popping out more in your environment as we start to analyze also your analytic rules alerts as part of Fusion. Lastly, we introduced a quite innovative honey tokens solution that let you deploy honeypots in your environment and detect if somebody tries to access those honeypots. I will use the screenshots here rather than a demo, which is also available because I found out it's too much moving around between different systems to show that. The first implementation of the solution focuses on the most important things you have, your secrets in Azure Key Vault. And the way honey tokens work is that we deploy a secret in your vault, which is not used for anything. The idea is that if the bad guys come around and start to inspect things around, they'll read also this secret. On the other hand, any software will access just the secrets it knows it needs. So anybody browsing, accessing randomly will trip on the honeypot. There's something I will not demonstrate here, but it's very important. The solution is not just about detecting those activity. It's also about helping you manage those honey tokens. We found out that one important challenge is that as the SOC owners, you're not in charge, of course, of those key vaults. Somebody else has to help you work there. So we created as part of a solution, a mechanism in which the key vault owners grant you just enough capabilities to deploy a decoy secret, but nothing else. So they can let you do just what's needed in the relevant key vaults. As you can see here, this is a key vault where there is a honey token. It's hard to tell which one it is, which is exactly the idea. Now, if you go to the other side, we've created a workbook within the workspace, as well as a set of analytic rules that help you detect access to those honeypots, as well as analyze them. So you can see in this workbook that there are incidents associated with users suspiciously accessing those honey tokens. And there's also the location of the specific key vault where things were accessed. Now notice that this is just an incident, so you don't have to go through the workbook. The workbook, as in many of the solutions that Jason presented in the Content Hub, focus to give you a direct, tailored way to investigate a certain type of incident, but those incidents would also be surfaced, of course, on the regular incident queue. So you'll get the honey token incident in the regular incident queue, and you'll be able to investigate it just like any other incident. One of the ways to do it would be through the workbook that we are providing. Back to the workbook. One thing that we introduced also at Ignite is a new feature to our user behavior analytics that provide entity pages for Azure resources. And that's very useful within the context of this feature, because what you can do now is you can actually investigate this key vault directly from the workbook. You can go into the key vault entity page and read everything about the key vault that you just detected that may have had some compromise. We have such entity pages for other types of Azure resources, and they are here in addition to the more traditional entity pages around user or host or IP address, which we released in the past. All those, as you can see, are tied to the investigation experience. And interesting, if you never noticed that, every entity page has an investigate bottom left, so you can actually investigate entities. Back to our key vaults. The workbook allows you to see what was the activity around this key vault around the time of the incident, as well as which users actually try to access the key vault at the time. So you know where to start your investigation. To sum up, beyond the neat concept of deploying decoy tokens that if somebody tries to access, they'll trip over them and you find that there's a bad guy in your environment. This is also a very good example of what a solution is and the new way we are approaching what we provide you as part of the Content Hub. It has the mechanism to deploy the solution, which is not just the workbook. It's around deploying the decoy tokens in the target key vaults. It has rules, which means you'll get incidents as part of your normal incident queue, as well as dedicated workbooks to investigate a specific incident type. Now that we've moved from how to find solutions to the detection to hunting, etc., it's time for the last step in the SIEM lifecycle or an incident lifecycle, and that's response. What do you do once you found there is something there? And we've also introduced a few innovations around that. I'll start with the second and third one because I'll talk about, actually, I'll start with the second one. It's a small one, but it's amazingly how many customers wanted it. You can now assign an incident to a group of users, not just to a specific user, which is a top asked for request by customers. Recently, 2 months ago, we also announced that you'll get the list of recent users up at the top of the assignment box, which is a small UI change that really makes life more easy. The other two things that we introduced much larger at Ignite. One is a playbook templates gallery that enables you to get playbooks in the box and use them. I'll demonstrate that, so I'll skip that for a while. And secondly, we are also now providing IP intelligence. So you'll get geo information and who is data as part of threat intelligence. Let me go now to the demo screen. That's this one, to look into those two. So let's start with the threat intelligence part. Now, when you go to the threat intelligence displayed, and I already pre-filtered for IP addresses because obviously IP information available for IP addresses. For each IP address, you'll actually get here information about not just location, so China, but also about the organization it belongs to and the type of organization. So it's much richer than just geolocation. And this information over time will be available throughout the product. Now, nearly last but not least, the playbook gallery. For a personal story here, I've been with Sentinel since inception. It's 3 years, and this thing was really missing. Playbooks are a real strong feature of the product. Jason alluded to it as part of the Risk IQ solution, but they were out of the product. You had to get them from GitHub, which is always hard. Finally, now we have a playbook templates gallery in the product, so you can have here, say, mail-related playbooks, which I'll talk about a lot as the example. So it's in the product, but it's more than that. In these 3 years, we've went a long way towards automation capabilities, and playbooks are just part of that. So now, essentially, when you select one of those and you create from the template an active playbook, what you actually do is you create an action, a custom action for automation rules. And I'll go with you through the process here. So let's create a playbook. We'll have a name for it, webinar mail playbook. Sorry. Okay, and I'll go next. You do have to provide who to send the email to. And actually, I selected the templatized version, so you'll see later on that you can change a lot of the HTML sent, but these are basic stuff that you can modify through here, so it's a customized email message. You can decide about new connection, and here we'll do that, and then we'll create that. We'll create the playbook. Now, there are 2 important things to note here. That was just moving it from the template to the active playbooks gallery, as you do with analytic rules, for example. But what we have actually done here is we created a send mail action for automation rules, and I'll show you in a second after how do you actually use that. But we did allow you one last time before you move on to customize anything. You can just leave here and go to automation rules, but you can also move here and, for example, okay, decide to change the email. So you can certainly do that. Going further, I'll move back and I'll go back to Azure Sentinel and I'll go to automation rules. And you can see that I have the new active webinar mail playbook. And I can create an automation rule, which is, well, new feature if you don't know about it, but it's a year old, I think. Send mail on high severity. And I'll add a condition that the severity, well, as you can guess, is equals high. And then the action would be run a playbook. And the playbook would be webinar, the webinar playbook. So I just created a playbook that for every high severity incident will send an email. And of course, we can add a lot of different conditions here, which I think is pretty neat. And that works for all your automation, for all your detection rules, as well as Microsoft built-in incidents. So I hope that's sort of exciting, especially if you are a user and you missed it. And with that said, I think that I'm moving back to Sarah. Sarah, do you want me to present?
No, I can go ahead and
okay.
Share my screen.
Perfect.
Ofer, can you just confirm for me you're seeing the slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I wanted to kind of close it out with a little bit of discussion about how Microsoft Sentinel is also continuing to expand its integration with the other Microsoft security technologies that many of you are relying on, in particular Microsoft 365 Defender and Microsoft Defender for Cloud, formerly Azure Defender. So as hopefully you guys know, we think at Microsoft we have this really unique combination of SIEM and XDR, which provides the enterprise-wide visibility, customization, extensibility that you require, and the depth of detections from these specialized Defender solutions. And so, making the most of this set of technologies, we're constantly adding new seamless integrations and experiences in the product to make those technologies and products work even better together. So we have a couple of new capabilities that are being that were announced at Ignite. One is just continuing our bidirectional incident sync, which we've offered with Microsoft 365 Defender, extended that a while back for Defender for Cloud, adding additional resource entity pages and enrichments, insights into those entity pages based on insights from the different Defender solutions, constantly adding new data sources to the mix, new or additional Microsoft data sources. For example, this time added insider risk management and a new solution for unified SOC monitoring of OT that operates with the Defender for IoT solution. We'll pop over and look at a quick demo of this. First, I just want to show you kind of the ever evolving and growing list of solutions that are available from Microsoft to connect things like, Azure Active Directory, your M365 data sources. You'll see here the Microsoft Defender for Cloud integration is available. In a click, you can enable integration with these data sources. This one in particular is going to enable the alert or incident integration with the Defender for Cloud. So once we get those data sources coming in, we can run analytics on top of that to create incidents or to sync with existing incidents that are generated by those other Microsoft Defender solutions. An example of that here is an incident that was being created based on an alert from Azure Defender, or now Defender for Cloud. And we can see we can easily pop over to look to investigate this further in the solution that actually did the detection, that generated that alert. In this case, it's Azure Defender. So this kind of seamless integration between these different portal experiences. So if we wanted to go deep in Defender, we could do that right here from the integrated incident. The other thing I want to highlight, again, I mentioned earlier, but the ability to keep status and sync across. So no matter which of these, whether you're using Defender or you're using Sentinel to manage and keep track of incident status, you can have all of those systems in sync, reflecting the current active state of that particular incident. Another thing to call out is these incidents, these alerts and incidents come into Microsoft Sentinel with the entities already parsed, and this enables us to get additional insights in those entity pages. So I wanted to actually pop over and show you an example of that. So here's an incident page, or I'm sorry, an entity page generated by Sentinel that has additional insights that are informed by the Defender solutions. So here we can see, for example, that there's some additional alerts, some recommendations, vulnerabilities across both the Defender for Endpoint and the Defender for Cloud solution, and we can seamlessly click over to view those additional insights. And so it really just reflects kind of a continuation of these seamless experiences that we're building across the Defender products and services and in Sentinel. So you can bring the data in very, very easily in one click. You can have various experiences like entity pages enriched with insight from the various products. You can transition seamlessly between those different experiences as you investigate threats and to keep status and assignment in sync across those different solutions. So with that, I'm going to take us back for a couple of slides to finish out the presentation. Sorry, one moment, I need to advance us to the right slide. That is going to be here. Bear with me. There we go. That's where we wanted to land up. Wanted to end up. Okay, so another thing I wanted to talk about kind of in closing here is less about new capabilities in the product, but about new offers that we think are really important to enable a couple of key scenarios. The first is around trial. So there's a new free trial that supports ingestion of up to 10 gigabytes per day for the first 31 days. And what's important to note about that is that it covers both the Microsoft Sentinel meters as well as the underlying Azure Log Analytics meters. So you can create a new instance from scratch and begin ingesting data at zero cost. Up to that 10 gigabyte per day limit for the first 31 days. There's also a new solution that provides some sample data out of the box, and that enables you to easily connect the sample data and begin to get, take advantage of the Sentinel experiences. There's incidents and things that you can begin to operate with to understand the scope and capabilities of Sentinel without having to connect any of your own data sources. So I just wanted to mention that for folks who want to kind of get started and experiment and begin to learn Azure or Microsoft Sentinel, that's a really good way to do that. The combination of the free trial and the sample data set. Of course, you can connect your own data sources as well, but just gives you an additional option. And then, of course, you can continue to add Microsoft Sentinel to an existing log analytics workspace. And in that case, the Sentinel meter will be free for the first 31 days. The other benefit or offer that I wanted to mention is the Microsoft Sentinel benefit for our Microsoft 365 E5 and now A5 and G5 customers. We had this offer available for the last year or so for E5 customers as a promotional offer, and we found that customers were just seeing a lot of benefit from this offer, and so we've now made that permanent and we've extended it to cover the A5 and G5 customers as well. And so this enables customers to get 5 megabyte per user per day of free data ingestion into Microsoft Sentinel, covering their Microsoft Microsoft data sources. So just another way to make it easier for you to bring in and connect your Microsoft 365 solutions and data sources into Azure Sentinel to get that enterprise-wide visibility. It's a nice financial benefit to using the two solutions together, in addition to all of the seamless integration work that we've done. So just wanted to highlight those two new offers that are available as of now as well. And then finally, just want to encourage everyone to take action today to get started with Microsoft Sentinel. If you haven't already, take advantage of the free trial, leverage that new sample sample solution to bring in data to help you get started, and certainly encourage you to learn more by clicking the Microsoft Sentinel link here. I know that there have been lots and lots of questions in the chat, and we've taken up most of the time with the presentation. Hopefully most of those questions were answered. I was trying to answer them, and I know Ofer and Jason and some others were as well as we went along. But is there anything, Ofer, Jason, that kind of stands out as maybe a question we'd want to address in these last 2 minutes that we have?
Yeah, we do have a couple.
I have one I really want to highlight. Somebody asked about my usage of Chrome, which I was ashamed of. So I used named tabs there, named tab groups. So just know that I did go and check, and it works very well with Edge as well. So now I can switch to Edge. Sorry, please, Jason.
Oh, no, of course. Thanks for answering that. So the first question we have is, can we reset the incidence ID numbers in Sentinel?
The answer is no. The question is why. Incident ID is sort of a unique ID that has to be the same, and I would love to hear the use case where it's needed to be reset.
Okay, thank you. And the next one we have is, how can we enable all logs sources and log analytics agents management for Windows?
How can we? So I would take it in a slightly different way. We're working a lot on our automation capabilities. I mentioned somewhere during the slide that we are showing we now have a feature to automatically manage analytic rules through a CI/CD process from a GitHub or Azure DevOps, and we are going to extend it to other data types. So you'll be able to manage even connectors in your repository. That's future. I don't have a date for that. And then you'll be able to use whatever you use for automation in your deployment pipeline to deploy also connectors, which would, I guess, translate to connecting all of them at once if anybody would like to. It does cost a lot of money.
Great, thank you. The next one is, what about analytics that have correlation between multiple data sources? Are these included in the totals?
I wasn't quite sure. I saw this one also. I wasn't quite sure what included in the totals meant. So a little bit hard to understand. Ofer, Jason, did that maybe you guys interpreted that a little bit differently?
You picked the right slide. I'm not sure what's the context of this. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could say there is, maybe this was in the context of solutions where we're showing, a set of analytic rules there that are related and being deployed. And certainly solutions can contain analytic rules that operate across multiple data sources. Or over, kind of normalized data types that might cover different data sources. And so I do think that could be the scenario. I know I'm not entirely sure if I'm answering the exact question that was posed, but that was the one angle that I thought it might have been coming from. So certainly solutions can contain analytic rules that might operate over other data sources as well.
Great. Just two more. With Azure Sentinel, can I have management and audit of all Microsoft mailboxes?
Microsoft is in Office 365. I think you already have that, but there might be a gap there I'm not aware of. If it's other types of Microsoft boxes, as in live.com or Exchange on-prem, that's harder.
Got it. Next one, is there ARM template examples available for automation rules, or is ARM not yet supported for deploying these?
I did answer this one. Anyways.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, it's actually a good one, with the same sort of story we've been talking about automation. Actually, you can deploy automation rules using ARM. It's not yet documented, so we are working to document that. And whoever asked if you reached out directly, we can set this sort of a sample JSON, which is still in the works.
And one last one, are you planning to offer managed Sentinel?
Managed Sentinel. Certainly lots of customers consider, managed security services as an important part of our portfolio of their kind of solution to managing and operating their SOC. And we work with a number of managed security services partners to enable them to deliver those services to customers.
Great. Well, thank you, Sarah, Ofer, and Jason for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security-webinar-feedback. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.
Thanks, Al.